Hello and a big warm welcome to you. I've just been at the beach watching whales frolic, so I've got a little bit of the frolicky wind-blown hair. So the request today was for me to talk about loving limits. So before we talk about loving limits, I'd love to rewind a little bit even before loving limits. Hi Lucy, to look at when we might use loving limits. So when our children are doing things that we don't enjoy, or they're not doing, which generally they're doing things that we don't enjoy. There are generally three reasons for this. I love this. This is from Aletha Salter. The three things are they have a need for information, which is one we often tend to focus on. It's often the least likely. The second is they have an unmet need, which is often for connection, for choice, for fun. The third reason, and often the main reason, is they have accumulated painful feelings that are causing that behavior. So when your child is doing something, the most helpful question is, I find, is to generally think about what's happening here. Why are they doing this? To really understand the cause. Do they have a need for information? Oh, there's some alarms to go and get my daughter for her ballet, from her ballet. Do they have a need for information? Do they have an unmet need, or do they have painful accumulated feelings? So loving limits really work most helpfully for that third one. So if they have a need for information, then clearly we need to give them that information. But if you've given your child the information, I really don't want you to climb on the table, sweetheart, because whatever reason it is, and they keep doing it and they keep doing it, then generally that lets you know that isn't the reason. So this is often a process of doing that thing and then observing your child. So if they keep doing the thing, then it clearly wasn't a need for information. Then you might look at, okay, is it an unmet need? And if so, can I find another way to meet that need? So often there's something like, maybe they're playing with something you don't want them to play with, and it doesn't meet your need either, maybe for care for that thing or for safety. So you might then explain and then offer to find something else that's going to meet that same need for them. So it's always looking at what need are they trying to meet, and how can I find a way to meet that need and also to meet my needs. So often it will be offering them different choices, or giving different suggestions so they still get that need met. Now, what was one? I seem to remember there was one in my local group, and I think the little child, I'm trying to remember who it was. Yes, okay, so she was lifting the bin up in the bathroom. Pretty sure this was the thing. And because it was a rubbish bin, her mum really didn't want to do it, but she kept doing it. She was fascinated by this. So, and the mum was feeling stressed, and because she was trying to encourage her not to do it, and her daughter kept doing it. And I suggested, got an itchy nose, I suggested, how about just get another bin or buy a new little bin, get a little cheapo one, and that's her bin to play with. So maybe it's in the bathroom as well, or wherever it was, but that's her one for playing with. So she was fascinated. Often children, those kind of younger ages, 2 to 3, they're often really interested in like putting things in things. So, opening, closing, putting things in, taking things out. So she had a completely clean bin, never been used as a bin, so that she could play with that. So whenever she felt that calling, she could go and do that, which would meet her need for whatever that was she was getting out of that, for learning, for the in and out, for the process she was enjoying. And the mum could feel calm and relaxed because she was, met her needs for safety and whatever else it was. So often there are ways like that where we can think, okay, what's actually going on for my child? How can I meet their need and also meet my need? Now, if you've done that kind of thing, and your child is still doing unwanted things, and generally with practice you start getting more, this can be much quicker to go, is that need for information, is that an unmet need, or is this accumulated feelings? So, particularly maybe your child is repeatedly throwing something. So throwing things generally, or hitting or biting or pushing, all those kind of things generally mean the third thing. They generally don't meet a need for information, because children will generally, I mean, there could be a need for information there, but generally that's probably not going to be it. It could be that they're meeting a need. They're learning about gravity, they're learning about causality, so we can explore that and play with it, and again offer different choices. If they're throwing something you don't want them to throw, how about inviting them to go outside with them and give them something soft to throw. So again, that's the need thing. But if they then keep on going to throw something that's heavy, or that may hurt them or hurt someone else, then it tells you it's probably the third reason. That's when loving limits are really helpful. So see how it's really important always to be observing, thinking, what's the root cause here? If your child's doing something that maybe doesn't meet your need for safety, or so sometimes clearly you're not going to be able to go through that process. If they're clearly, you're just about to hit someone over the head with something, you're probably just going to go in with a loving limit. But you can also go in with attachment play in examples like this. So when they're throwing things, you can get in with attachment play. When they're showing aggression, you can also get in with attachment play. But we'll talk about that another time. So we're going to talk about loving limits. We finally got to loving limits. So the whole point of loving limits is understanding the root cause of the behavior, which we've already ascertained is probably number 3. It's painful accumulated feelings that are coming out in this unhelpful way, because there are 3 ways that children and adults can respond to feelings. They can express them in healthy ways, or we can. That's through laughter, through crying, through raging, through sweating, through shaking, through playing, through talking. Or we can repress the feelings, and that's through a myriad of ways. Or they come out through aggression. So if it's coming out in these kind of unwanted ways, our job really is to try to aim to help those feelings. It's like a geyser or something, to help the energy move along and come out in these healthy ways, through crying, through raging, through laughing. But with loving limits, we're really wanting to help them come out through crying and raging. So that's basically what a loving limit is doing. It's saying no to the behavior. It's saying yes to the underlying feelings. And it's really central and key to get this point, because often when people are newer to loving limits, they'll go in and they'll set a loving limit, and then they'll say, but my child's still doing that thing. The reason they're still doing that thing is they haven't let the feelings out that are causing that behavior. So the whole thing of a loving limit is not that we say we set the loving limit and they stop. Generally, the whole point is that we're stopping the behavior, but then we are saying yes to the feelings. So we're creating the conditions for those feelings to come out. And there are particular conditions that generally need to happen, not always, for them to feel safe enough to let those feelings out. One is we generally need to feel relatively calm. We need to feel relatively loving. We need to feel relatively centered. And we need to be not in judgment, punishment, shaming, blaming, anger, those kinds of things. Those don't generally provide the conditions for a child to let out what's really bothering, the feelings that are bubbling underneath. They need to know that we're there loving them, supporting them, listening to them, that we're not punishing them. We're really just there to help really stop this, so we can say yes to this. So it's no to the behavior, yeah, absolutely, yes, 100% to the feelings. And the main way I generally do this is, if it's something kind of urgent, like it's a hitting or something like that, is to set the limit first, and then to offer the love. I mean, the love comes through your tone of voice and the way you approach them and your posture and all of those things. But in terms of the words, the limit comes first and then the love. So the limit generally is, the way I say them, are things like, I'm not going to let you hit Jenny, or I'm not willing for you to hit Jenny, or those are the general ones I do. You could say, I'm not going to let you, but sometimes that can be a little bit power overish, and I've noticed my children didn't used to respond to that one so enjoyably, but I'm not willing for you to. So it's a really clear, it's no, there's no, so anyway, I'll I'll go on to what I don't recommend, but simply just saying, so this is the no is to the behavior. I'm not going to let you do that. So you're creating the safety. You're basically setting that loving limit. If you've seen Neo in The Matrix, I saw that again recently. It's that same quality of no. It's not a no. It's not shaming. It's not blaming. It's not harsh. It's simply a no. I'm not going to let you do that, sweetheart. I'm not going to let you do that. I'm not going to let you do that. It's got that kind of quality. It's very neutral. It's really just stopping the behavior. That's all it is. No to the behavior, yes to the underlying feelings. What's the next piece? And then the empathy. And the empathy, I usually say something like, and I'm here, sweetheart, I'm listening. I see that you're upset, or I'm right here, I'm listening. And then often what will happen is those feelings will start this process here. They're coming here, and those feelings need to kind of get over to here to come out here. And that's where you might see them starting to go, oh no, like that kind of thing. That's the feelings moving along. My son's looking at me, he's like, what on earth are you doing? So they might kind of start getting a little bit or they might start saying, you're so this, or you're so, whatever language they're used to. That's not fair. That's part of this. This is the translation. It's kind of like the metamorphosis of the feelings. They've been coming out like that. They really needed to come out like that in the first place. That was the original natural route. But generally unfortunately, mostly because of us and the culture, they kind of ended up going over there. So this is when we set the loving limit. This is the feelings going, so they can come out in this way. Often we may need to repeatedly set the limit and offer empathy. And because they might start trying to do it more. And you may need to move in with a gentle, if it's hitting, just with as little energy as you need to actually stop it. But just stopping that. I'm not going to let you hit, Jenny. And I'm right here. I'm listening. Yeah, I see you. Yeah, see that. And, maybe if they were wanting to do something, you might say, see, you really want to get that toy, or, whatever it is. And I'm right here. I'm listening. And yeah, I'm not going to let you do that, sweetheart. I'm not going to let you do that. And I'm right here. Yeah, I'm listening. I'm here with you, sweetheart. So you're really holding that, what's called the balance of attention in aware parenting is the safety, the support, the connection, the love, and that really clear limit. I'm not going to let you do that, because they don't really want to do that thing. They actually want to do this. This is what they're trying to do. So we're doing it in the most kind of neutral but loving, clear way. Annalie, thank you for this, Marion. Wonderful to be reminded of this again and again. Beautiful and perfect tonight. I'm so glad. Such a lovely thing, I think, loving limits is that clear no. And by the way, lots of compassion, lots of self-compassion if you've gone in with loving limits in ways that were angry or frustrated and you didn't have that clear energy. Sometimes it doesn't matter so much and they can still have that release and let out those feelings. My son, when he went through a big, you don't mind me talking about this, Sonny, a big phase after his dad left, and he went through a big phase of hitting and headbutting for quite some time. I would definitely have big reactions, and I was certainly not always clear and calm and loving. And so I really want to invite you to have lots of compassion. Have lots of compassion for those parts in me and that time that I went through. It can be really hard to set clear, loving limits if we're in our own powerlessness. If we've been repeatedly hit, it can take us back into old sweet spots. Perhaps if we were a younger sibling, or we had children at school being harsh to us, or maybe we had authoritarian parents. It can take us into our sweet spots, and it can be really hard at times like that to set those clear, loving limits. That's why it's so important to go off and get listened to. Go and have your empathy buddy listen to you. Go and talk to a counselor or therapist. Have your inner loving crew, your outer loving crew on hand to hear all the parts that don't want to respond with this absolute love and compassion, all the parts that want to respond back in ways that aren't loving. Hi, Clara. Welcome, welcome. So sometimes you can set a loving limit the opposite way around, like if it's not an emergency type of thing, you may give the empathy first. So, sweetheart, I really see that you'd like a 5th cookie. Or usually actually it can be things like reading books before bed. If that's a bit of a repression mechanism, you might give a bit of warning. I'm just going to read 3 more books, or do some attachment play around the books, the biting books game. Ah, the book bit me. Ah, have the book upside down, and then give the advance warning. I'm going to read 3 more now, or whatever it is, or this is the last one, and I'm not going to read any more after that. And children will often have feelings bubbling up around that. And again, we can look at those 3 things. Is it the information? Probably not. Is it the needs? Well, if we've met their needs a lot by giving them a lot of connection and we've read lots, it's probably feelings. So there we can say, empathy first. Sweetheart, I really hear that you really love me when I read you books. You love it when I read you books. I really hear that you want me to read you another story, sweetheart. And you might give the information once. Remember I said this was the last one, but then I wouldn't keep going with the information, because then again it can actually prevent the feelings coming out, because we've kind of ascertained it's not the information. So we go to the feelings. I really hear that you want me to read you another one, sweetheart, and I'm not going to read any more now. Yeah, I know you really want me to read another one. I'm here. I'm listening. I really hear you. Yeah, you love me. You love it when I read you books. You so want another one. I'm not going to read any more now, sweetheart. So do you see how loving limits are so... it's funny because I'm always looking at your names and your pictures down here, whereas actually I really need to be looking at the camera. But anyway... they're so loving. It's so full of empathy. There's no harshness. There's no judgment. It's actually the opposite. It's simply, I really hear you, sweetheart, and I'm not going to do that anymore. And I think it's such a thing to learn, particularly as women. Hi, Angela. Hi, Titty. Is that we can set clear, loving limits. We don't need to, because often in our families growing up, limits were, generally in our culture, limits are either non-existent or they're harsh. In our culture, it's quite a new thing to have loving limits. To me, I see it's the divine marriage between the feminine and the masculine. That's what a loving limit is. It's a clear no. It's a clear no. There's no, it's just a no. There's a no here. And I think for us as women, that can be quite a journey to really find that place of standing in that energetic no. So it can really take some practice for some of us. It certainly did for me to find that that's a no. It's just a no. It's not a big thing. It's a no. So I want to add 2 more things before I go, because I need to go and pick up my daughter. One is the things I don't generally recommend. I don't recommend saying it's not okay to, because remember those conditions for the feelings to come out. We need to provide the conditions of connection and love and safety, emotional safety. If we say it's not okay for you to do that, it is some kind of random thing. It's not it's not connecting. It doesn't help them feel connected. And not okay is a judgment. So we're coming from our thinking mind. It's going to their thinking mind. At some level, it's, especially if they're highly sensitive, it's very possible they're going to feel some shame or maybe guilt, but more likely to be shame, because they're hearing what they're doing is not okay. And children, even adults, find it hard to differentiate their actions and their inner self. And it's simply just not very effective at this purpose, which is let those feelings come out. It's not okay. If someone says that to you, do you have any desire to go, oh, I'm going to let out my deepest feelings now? Not really. So it's not okay. And again, if you've said that, they can heal if they do have any feelings about it. And for some children, that will be enough for them to do the releasing, let the feelings out. I also don't recommend saying we don't do that in our family, or we don't do that, we don't hit, or we don't whatever it is, because generally they've already done that. And if they've already done that and we're saying in our family we don't do that, then it can be quite a cognitive dissonance thing, like, well, does that mean I'm not a part of this family? Because I just did that, and I've done that a few times, and my mom or dad's saying that we don't do it in our family, so maybe I don't belong in the family. Some of the deeper things that can happen for children when we say things, quite innocently, trying to help. So that's why I don't recommend that. And again, it doesn't really have the conditions that are most helpful for what we actually want, which is saying no to behavior, yes to the feelings, yes, sweetheart, yes to the feelings. There's one other thing I don't recommend, and I've completely forgotten what it was. There's usually 3 I suggest. It's not okay. We don't. Can't remember the third one. I'm sure I will. Hi, Phoenix. The other thing I wanted to say is you can use this not only with children, but particularly for us as women. I find this really, really helpful. In my inner loving presence process. So when I go back to past situations, when people did things that I really didn't want them to do, my inner loving crew come in, often my inner loving father, and he will go in and say, I'm not willing for you to do that. I'm not willing for you to I'm not willing for you to hurt her. I'm not willing for you to say that. I'm not willing for you to do that. I'm not willing for you to. And energetically, there is nothing more wonderful for me personally than experiencing that in that inner dialogue. It's very, very healing for me, I find, to have in those past places where my little inner children were experiencing things that they really wanted to be protected from, to have that again, an absolute loving limit. It's not necessarily rage. I mean, rage, it isn't rage. Rage can be really part of the process too. But anyway, this is the loving limit. And we can also use it really helpfully in other places in our outer life. So, for example, I've been having loads of calls recently from people trying to sell me stuff, website stuff and blah, blah, blah. Just again, having that clear no, we don't need to let things happen to us that we really don't want to happen. And we don't need to get angry. We can just clearly say, no, I don't want that, thanks. Thank you very much, put the phone down. I found for me the most amazing gift to find that no, I'm not willing for this to happen. And also in terms of kind of internal dialogue and the whole willingness practice, it's often as useful to be able to say, not only I'm really willing to have this happen, but I am really not willing to have this happen anymore. And often it's been things in our life where we haven't wanted them, but we have been putting up with them and saying yes to them. And to get to that point where we say, you know, for me, I remember, you probably remember my story last year with my car, when I came to the point of, I'm really not willing to have a car that does this anymore. I'm not willing to have a car that consistently will not work. You've probably had that in your life. You know, sometimes it can be a really big thing. You know, I'm really not willing to have a friendship where I'm treated this way. I'm really not willing for that. It's such power. And for me, it's really an emotional, energetic thing. So when I'm doing, you know, particularly all the time, but some kind of process where I'm really connecting in with my inner loving crew and they're saying, no, not willing for that. So powerful, so powerful. Hi, Lau. So there's loving limits for our children, loving limits for our inner children, and loving limits outside in the world. Really, really useful things. I've found my life is transformed beyond measure, really understanding and embodying these. And it is a practice, and I'm excited because I imagine I'm going to get more competent at them. So wherever you are in that process, just to know practice. It's like anything. Practice, 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 practice. Thank you so much for watching, and come and share your comments. Come and let me know how this was for you, and I look forward to talking to you again tomorrow with the next Q&A. Lots of love. Bye.